We're live. We are officially live.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so I have it up on my iPad, so I should be able to see it from there, right?
Here's hoping.
Okay.
And so now I'm going to share my desktop. There is my nice clean desktop. And I'm going to click on an app. And that app is going to be my Todoist. Can you see that? Eventually. There's a little bit of a lag.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder if I should go ahead. Yep, I see it. So I am on mute so that I don't hear.
Definitely mute. Yeah.
Us talking. Yeah. But yeah, I see it, and hopefully it will stay that way.
Okay. Here's
okay.
hoping.
Good.
All right. Okay. Shall we begin?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and that over there is Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Are you so ready for this? Are you
I'm
ready?
I'm a little scared.
Why?
Just because, it can get really confusing. To do task management systems can get confusing, and you've done a lot of research, so I'm excited.
Case. Oh, I'm a mess.
What's that?
I'm a basket case.
You're a basket case.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Too many tasks in too many places, and the notifications are coming hard and fast, Nikki Kinzer.
Oh, no.
I'm a hot mess.
Yes. So yes, I'm a little scared, but I'm excited. This is a good topic and good show.
And we've got some good questions that have come in. I'll tell you, Nikki, I am hearing myself through you. Is there audio coming in through some of your speakers somewhere? Is there a chance
that there would be audio coming from one of my speakers?
I went, ho, and then I heard myself through your microphone.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
If you take your headphones out, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Can you still hear me? I mean, take them both out. Can you hear them through your...
Can
you still hear me? Yeah,
yes.
That's a problem. We need to fix that.
Okay, so how do I fix that?
Your headphones are plugged into the Yeti, right?
Right.
And where is the audio coming from? Your iPad or the computer?
The computer.
Okay, then you should be able to just hit the mute key on your keyboard. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello.
Hello?
Yeah.
Now I don't hear you at all.
Oh, better hit it again.
What?
Better hit it again.
Hit mute?
No, I just mean to unmute it.
Right.
That's a very strange thing. Very strange thing. What is going on with that? You could go into your sound properties and make sure that, so go into system preferences.
Where's my sound properties?
Actually, in the Skype thing, remember the audio video preferences we went into in Skype?
Right.
Make sure the speakers are set to the Yeti in addition.
Oh, you fixed it, tech genius.
Yeah. It's magic. It's a little bit of magic.
In under 2 minutes, I think, too. So that's good. All
Hallelujah.
right.
Here we go. We are talking about to-do systems today. I'm very excited about it because this puts an end to a long march to the sea for me and investing so many tasks in so many apps. I know we do have some great questions and comments from folks, and so I'm excited to walk through some of these apps that we've talked about over the last several months and talk about just sort of how we're using them and how we should use them and what we've learned. Before we do that, head over to TakeControlADHD.com, get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right on the website or subscribe to our mailing list right there on the front page and get an email every time a new episode goes live. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook, and if you haven't yet, we sure appreciate you considering jumping into the Patreon support community, patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. For a couple of bucks a month, you get access to our Facebook private group where you see this, you see a live stream of our podcast every Friday, and it goes live early for you, and all sorts of other little things. We're working hard to improve and grow the show. So thank you for participating there. We sure appreciate those of you who love the show and have been impacted by the show enough over the last 6 years to support us that way. Thank you so much. Okay, Nikki, to-do systems.
Yes.
We are in a weird place, you and me.
We are.
Because you were using Todoist and I was using Things, and now we've switched.
Seriously? You switched to Todoist?
I told you, it's so weird. Well, I don't know. This is where my non-commitment commitment comes in. I have so many, all of my tasks are over on all of these systems now. And so I feel like we need to hash it out. What is it about each of these that we love, and how are we using them? I want to know how you're using them and why you've made the change. And I want to share with you why I've made the change. I remember this email.
I didn't know you actually switched it. I thought you were just looking into it.
Oh, I've put all of my tasks in all of the apps, right? And I mean, literally all of the apps. Microsoft To Do, Reminders, Things, OmniFocus, Todoist, Wunderlist, and I'm dizzy of it. But
I'm sure you are.
I can do all my work in any one of those apps, and they'll all scream at me when I don't. So
right.
That's kind of where we are. But we were in this place where I was very excited about trying a collaborative list in Todoist. And late one night, you had sent me some things that you needed me to do. And so I put the tasks in Todoist, and I said, hey, look at me. I'm trying out Todoist for this upcoming show. And here's a request to share this particular little project with you. And you wrote me back immediately saying, hey, that's so funny. I'm testing out Things for a client, and I think I'm going to recommend it, and I really like it. I might stay here. And my mind was blown. My mind was blown.
That's exactly what happened. I remember it.
Yeah. And so,
but I'm a very simple gal. And so, what I'm looking for and what you're looking for are two very, very different things. So I just want to make sure people understand that I am very, very simple.
But what you told me when I told you I was on Things is that you loved Todoist because it was so simple.
It is, but there was one thing, and I don't know when you want me to talk about it, right. But there was one thing about Things that Todoist does not do. And I know you can make it do it, but it's a lot harder and it's still not as visually appeasing. So there is one thing that was like, done deal. I'm moving over.
I love that. I'm proud of you for embracing such change. Usually I feel like I drag you along. You should try this.
Well, I'm not embracing update change very well.
No, that's a whole different show.
Yeah.
Well, let's so the whole nut of this is, over the last couple of months, I've been essentially managing OmniFocus and Todoist and Things 3 and Trello and Microsoft To Do and Wunderlist, all these things. And the objective is to see if any one of these apps really shines in three key ways, right? Number one is simplicity of getting data into the system. Number two is simplicity of maintaining a system that makes sense for the work I do. And number three, simplicity of managing tasks and associated notes toward completion, right? That's like, I can manage stuff all the live long day, but if it doesn't make it easy to check off the box that is done, then I'm in trouble, and it doesn't work for me. And so I feel like we should start with Things 3. It is a Mac only app. I should say Mac only and iOS only. So it's not really only, it's Apple ecosystem only. And I know that's a little bit frustrating for some folks who are, Microsoft folks. Right. I have been using Things 3 for since it came out, right? Since the day it launched. I've been very curious about Things 2. I'd used things too when it launched years ago. And it hadn't been updated for the longest time, and it was very frustrating. I felt like the development team had just forgotten about it, and then suddenly Things 3 came out, and it's gorgeous. It is really a beautiful app, and that's important, right? I mean, it's important.
It is.
The design.
I think so.
Huge, right? And I think specifically for ADHD, if you're to do your workbox, to call back to a very early podcast, if your workbox is a mess, if it's not visually approachable, you're not going to be able to look at it and see the work you need to do and get it done when you need to do it. And that's huge. Mm-hmm. And that's a thing that you really appreciate.
Yes. So I'm going to do my best to explain this. So people can understand it. So I have nothing. I mean, I still like Todoist. I think that, as I said, probably 2 weeks ago, Todoist works for me. I don't have any issues with it. So it was really surprising for me to make that switch because I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't looking for it at all. But the thing that's very similar about Todoist and Things is the basic setup. Like if I'm looking at both of them right now, kind of compared to each other, and they both have an inbox. They both have today's, what's going on today. Todoist has the next 7 days, and Things has, upcoming. So there's a lot of very similar things. Todoist has projects, and then under the project is where you have all of, your checklist of things to do under that project. This is what sold me on Things, is that they take it a step further. So you have these areas, right, that you can put in. So as you're seeing on your screen right now, you have Rash Pixel as an area, and then underneath Rash Pixel is all of the different projects that have to do with that category. Right. Well, then if you go under,
so let's now we're in this. I clicked on this ADHD to-do system walkthroughs, and so this is the area is rashpixel.fm. The project is ADHD, whatever the number of this episode is, to-do system walkthroughs, and then we're here on the project, and you can see some of the if you're on the live stream, you can see some of the notes that we've gotten, and then below that you get all of the tasks with headers, right? I've added a bunch of headers in here, so go ahead.
Right, and that's the thing, is that underneath the project, you can have these headers, which breaks down the project even more. So that's probably the easiest way for me to say it, is that Todoist does a great job with categories and tasks under that category. But I think Things does an excellent job of breaking it down even further. So, to just give an example, because people who aren't seeing the screen share, I can have a project where I did a webinar this week, and I can break that down into what emails need to be sent, what content needs to be done with the webinar, what marketing needs to be done, and I can see each task under those groups, and it's so clear. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I really like that I just found out today, because I'm still kind of, exploring this, is that when you go to your to-do list or your today list, it comes with everything. You can see all of it, but then you can break it down into category too. So if you want to just look at the stuff that you need to do for your office, or you want to look at stuff that's just important that day, you can just look at those tasks and not have to see everything, all in one huge list.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about the way it uses tags too, right across the top. Right. I'm in the Today view, and you can see I also have my calendar integrated with it. So right at the top of Today, I see all of my appointments that are scheduled, and then I have the categories or tags of all of the tasks that I have in the Today view visible right now. It shows me a header here that says 10 new to-dos have been added to your today list. That means if you end the day yesterday, the today list was clear, and this morning it's telling me, hey, 10 new things have just added to your list, and there are little gold dots next to each task, like daily review and laundry and take out the trash. And I can click OK and make those go, the little highlights go away. And then I have it broken up by area. So I can see what's in personal, what's in Rash Pixel FM, what's that smell, what's in regular Rash Pixel business client stuff. So, the look of it is very simple. There's one other element that you haven't mentioned, which I do want to call out, which is the next layer of sort of depth. When you have a project, let's go into, let's say we go into What's That Smell? Podcast I'm starting, and we'll start a new task. And here is a new task. And then we'll go into the checklist. And I can add task 1, task 2, task 3. Great for things like grocery lists and little, things that I need to do every week. You can see that there is a task list now associated with a task, a checklist associated within a task. So it's another layer of depth that goes into each task, beyond area, then project, then task, then checklist. So those are the 4 levels you get, and you can't really go any deeper than that, right? I mean, that's it. So you can't nest projects inside of other projects. That's something you can't do. So when it comes to breaking down your tasks, you really have a project, the tasks that go into it, and if there is a smaller level of detail you need to use, then you can use the checklist within the task, and that's it. That's where it stops. There are some things,
and that's why I moved. I mean, was that. So.
It is very simple. It is very, very, very simple and beautiful. It is easily the most beautiful and approachable of all of these, the things that I looked at. The design, it looks great across all devices. You don't have this first/second class citizen app. It looks beautiful on the computer. It looks beautiful there's no web access to it. It is the Prime Citizen is the computer, and it syncs your database across your devices through the Things Cloud account. Everybody has to buy it. If you have a family and you're an iCloud member, you can or you have iCloud family sharing enabled. They do have this app available for sharing so that you don't have to repurchase every version of it. But that is something that's definitely been a frustration for some folks. It is a quality app, this Things 3, and so I would argue, in my experience, it's worth the expense, but it's not cheap, and so that's definitely an issue. And there's no freemium option either. You got to buy it or don't. It doesn't scale all that well. We talked about once you have a lot of tasks and a lot of projects, it gets very sort of cumbersome. If I have right now 5 active shows in the list under Rash Pixel FM, and that is, once I have more that are in the cycle of ready to do, then this list gets so long I can no longer really keep track of what's in my sidebar. So scaling is a real question for Things 3. I find, I end up having to use the due date or the when and deadline. So you can set this. So here's What's That Smell. If I say, I don't want to do this project until tomorrow, then it suddenly disappears from the sidebar. It won't show up until it's in the window of available. And that's that's kind of a nice thing to think about. So when you go into the area, you see all of your projects that are available, and then you scroll down and see what's upcoming. And so that's useful. I also like the someday option. You can say, hey, here's a task that, I definitely need to do, but I don't really have I'm waiting on something, or I'm waiting on somebody, and I can't do it yet. So that's important to kind of keep in mind. So there are some levels of detail here that are useful. But Things 3, super useful. You had a question too, Nikki, about sharing tasks and projects, and it's not very pretty. So you can share, but it shares as like just a straight up task. So if I share, let's see, I go into this project. I don't know if you can see this. So I right click on
the
it.
People that are listening to the podcast aren't seeing this, right?
They aren't. So you got to be watching the live stream. And you know what? For this one, maybe we'll post the YouTube version of this in the show notes on the website, so you can actually walk through it. I think it's important to have this. So anyway, you click on the share. If you right click on the project you want to share and click on share, then it gives you the standard Mac share options. So let's say you want to, share it in message. As soon as you open messages, it just gives you the title and the brackets, and it's just text. It's not something you really do anything with. It's just sort of ugly. And so this thing is not designed as a collaborative tool. It's really not. It is designed as a personal to-do application. And this is in contrast to a tool like Trello, for example, which was centrally designed as a collaborative, experience, and where it is on the web. It is a team project, and you have tasks. I have this Trello board we're looking at in the live stream right now that has some of the tax tasks. My wife is exploring Trello for her business and her team, and it's fascinating. I really struggle with Trello as a personal planning tool. This sort of Kanban board where you create your boards, or you create these sort of buckets, and then you drag cards between the buckets. So you can name these buckets whatever you want. Here's our active tax tasks, and we have to prep our taxes, and then you drag these over to completed projects when you're done, and then it's done. And we have our list of shame, which is, my goodness, this is a thing we haven't done, and we really need to do it because we feel terrible about it. So
that's sad.
It's sad. It's really sad. So Trello is a really interesting thing. The nice thing about Trello is it's available for every platform. Since it's web-based, it's everywhere. And, that is an important thing to think about. I would just back to things briefly. One of the things I love most about it is it doesn't nag you when you don't do things. And this helps the ADHD brain, where if you have a task that was due today and you didn't do it, or you just had it as available today, tomorrow when you show up, they just kick it forward. It's just now it's available today, right? It was available yesterday. Now it's available today. It doesn't glare at you. It doesn't highlight it as bright red and send you notifications that you're a terrible person. It's just available today. And I think that's a very gentle way to remind you that you have stuff that's done. So last, I'm a huge fan of templates. I adore templates, and I have so many tasks that are templated. And when I go into things, I scroll down to my templates area. I don't know how well you can see this. I go over to my templates area and look at all these tasks. They're all marked as someday because they're not due. And then I have the tasks all prepped with headings. So you can see I have my, this is the ADHD podcast, and I have prep and research, which is as a heading. So I need to build the show notes doc. I need to research background on whatever we're talking about. And then recording and production. I need to record the show and produce the audio and upload it to Libsyn to host it. I need to do the design things. All of these things are in this template. Then all I have to do is duplicate the template. So I come over here, I select it. I select the ADHD podcast and I hit Command D. And now I have two of them. And then I take the ADHD podcast and I drag it over to Rash Pixel FM. And now it's no longer a template. Now it's a thing I can edit in my, and put dates associated with it and actually get the work done. And how do you do that? How do you actually manage the dates? This is one of my absolute favorite and well thought out pieces of Things 3. I just click to select, say, these 3 tasks. And then I take them and I drag them up to upcoming and I drop them. And all it does is show me a date picker, and I can just select the date. And now all of those 3 tasks are available on Monday. And I think that's so cool.
Wow, pretty slick.
So slick and so fast for managing a whole bunch of tasks, individual task due dates and deadlines. So I'm a big fan of it, and I think it's very cool. I am I guess we should look at the upcoming view, because I think that's something you made a comment on, which is, this upcoming is really nice. It actually gives you your entire calendar and says, here's tomorrow, here are your appointments, and here are the projects that you have slated as due. Here's Sunday, here's the stuff you got to do. Here's Monday, here's the stuff you got to do. You can really get a sense of how busy you are going through the upcoming. And then it breaks it down by month. Once you get out of the next week, you keep scrolling. Now here's the rest of February, here's March, there's April. Look at all the crap you have to do. So it's a pretty useful little interface. What do you think? Did I cover everything you like about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I then moved from there. I went back to OmniFocus. I can't believe I went back to OmniFocus. I haven't
looked at OmniFocus in a long, long time.
OmniFocus is, you can see here, it's been a little while since I played with OmniFocus. I have it set up exactly the same way. If you look over on the left column, I have all my projects. I have the inbox, and then personal, and then RashPixel FM for the podcast, and RashPixel for the clients, photography, gifts. I keep my gift lists in here for everybody, and then templates. And all of these things work essentially the same. It's just, I look at it, and I don't know if it's that, I've gotten old maybe. And when I started wearing glasses, and then I take glasses off, that's what it feels like using things and then going back to OmniFocus. There are a dizzying array of options, and those options are not hidden well enough when it comes time to actually, do the work and schedule your work. I am way too easily overwhelmed by what comes next and how to clearly see what is available. It requires a great amount of work. This is very much follows the GTD, getting things done, David Allen methodology. One of the reasons I went back to OmniFocus is because I listened to an interview with Ken Case, who is the CEO of OmniFocus, and I was fascinated by some of the things he said. First of all, when I talk about the dizzying array of options, one of the things he said was that we think that there are a lot of options, and we want to practice what we call progressive disclosure, which means it's very simple. And then when you need an option, say you type in a task, all you need to see is the task. But if you need a date and you start typing a date, then you'll see the options for dates. And once you type in a date, you are enabled to activate repeating tasks. And so with everything you do, it discloses another option that you might logically need next. If you don't need to go that far, it won't take you that far. And I think that's really important. As we'll see in a minute, OmniFocus, talking about progressive disclosure in the next version coming this year, is a little bit of a day late, dollar short when you look at what things and Todoist in particular are doing. So that's OmniFocus. I don't feel like I need to spend a lot of time on OmniFocus. It's kind of a mess, and I'm confident in my decision not to be using it.
That sounds good. I trust you, Pete.
Okay, then
because you have to make decisions, and so if you can eliminate one, then eliminate it. That's the best thing you can do.
That's exactly right. So let's then talk about Todoist.
Okay.
You actually made a really astute comment that, in fact, it's not that Todoist.
I made it an astute.
You did an astute comment. Yeah, it was smart.
That sounds so
smart.
fancy.
It was a little. It was a little fancy. So Todoist is, man, it's really interesting. The things that I love about Todoist, I'm sorry, we just got a question in here, and I totally want to talk about that. So hang on. We'll talk about it at the end. The thing that I didn't like about Todoist, I found it just totally unapproachable, and so many people were asking questions about it. They really love it. The nice thing about Todoist is it's everywhere, right? There are no questions. Todoist is on every platform: Windows, Mac, web. So it's on Linux. It's everywhere. It's on Windows Phone and Android and iPhone. It's everywhere. The challenges, it's not, doesn't look the same everywhere. Sometimes, like iOS is in particular a fifth class citizen. Like, it's just a terrible,
that's sad
app. It's really, really ugly. But the things that it does well, it does pretty well. It has the same sort of metaphor. Up in the top left, you have inbox, you have today, and you have the next 7 days. And it'll break down the work that you have coming that you've scheduled. You have projects where you can say, here's a major area and here's a project inside of that area. And within that area, you can have projects that are check-offable. You can nest tasks beneath them and nest tasks even further beneath them. It is seemingly endless, the levels to which you can go to break down your projects. And that's one of the reasons I thought was curious that was one of your complaints, because actually Todoist allows you to nest and break down work at a much greater level of detail than Things does. Things actually stops you. It physically, you can't break down tasks any further. But the astute part is that in Todoist, it's tricky. You have to know a keyboard shortcut. You have to know to hover over this particular area of the task to drag the task, to indent it. And so it's,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So see, exactly what's happened is, when and this is the problem with OmniFocus, I think, when you don't know what it's capable of doing, then you don't do it. And then you go to a different app because you see that app does it. So and that's why that's exactly it. I didn't know you could do that.
And see, this is also the danger, that the other side of the progressive disclosure sword, right? One of the things that we have going on with Todoist is it is incredibly powerful with natural language task processing. So I can type in the task, I can say, update this part of the book, hashtag, and then a project, and then @ and then a tag, or maybe I'm the other way around. It's @ project, hashtag, tag, and it will, and every Thursday or every other Thursday at 4 p.m. And it will go ahead and parse all of that data and put the task in the right place with the right label and the right date. And it does it all without me ever having to lift my fingers off the keyboard. That is a really cool part of Todoist, that they have spent an enormous amount in natural language processing. It's also the thing that you have to, that's a little bit opaque. You don't know what you can type. You just have to sort of trust that I'm going to start typing something and hope that they've thought of this before I have. And once you get to that point, once you kind of have that Hail Mary experience, it's pretty smart. I just want to show you how I have chosen to use to set up OmniFocus, or not OmniFocus, to set up Todoist, and I'm doing this in the web. I'm doing this in the web because this is a web native system. Todoist exists first and foremost on the web, right? That's the mothership. And I think the folks at Doist, the company that runs Todoist, if they had their druthers, they would not develop for any other platform. They really love the web. And I think, it's the best web-based tool that I've run into. And I haven't talked about, Toodly-Doo or Remember the Milk, but I think, in my experience, and I didn't invest in those two in particular, those web-based tools, but I think Todoist actually has a leg up on them, this round. So let me go ahead and share the screen here, and you can see here's my today. Now, up in the excuse me, cat in my throat. So here's my today. Up in the top left, we have our inbox, and today I have 39 tasks I need to get done today, and in the next 7 days I have 108 tasks that are going to be coming due. I have my projects set up very similar to the projects that I've set up in Things and OmniFocus, predictably. Personal, photography, RashPixel FM for the network stuff, RashPixel, excuse me. Bless the live stream for putting up with my coughs. RashPixel for the company stuff, gifts for others, and then my templates, my beloved templates. And as we move over, we can see what the tasks look like when you have done the work of scheduling them and putting them in the right place in the Today view. In this case, I have some tasks that I have specific times associated with, and I like how the times show up in bold. Everything that has a time associated with it means I have specifically allocated time on my calendar. More about that in a little bit.
See, I never used that because it bugged me. Well,
I'm going to show you why it might not bug you once I talk about calendaring because this is a really important thing. So you also have the project where it is, where it lives, and you have the color code. I have them color coded. And then below that, we have the tasks that are not associated with specific times, but I still need to do them. And in fact, I've assigned a priority 1 to these 3 tasks. I need to do those, or they will cause other things to slip. And I have a priority 2 task that I need to do, but it's not going to cause something else to slip if I don't get it done. I have some personal tasks. Yep, today, this weekend, it's laundry day. And so I have some tasks associated with laundry, and tasks like, hey, I need to record the show that we're recording right this second. So that's what my projects look like. And if I open up the project list here, let's say, for example, I open up Rashpixel FM, you will see that, in fact, I have a project for every show. And within those shows, within the show project, I have the show tasks broken up. Again, look at the level of detail here. I have the task here, and you'll see I have it in bold. That is a very cool feature, but how would you know to do this in Todoist? If you type 2 exclamation points before and after the task, it makes it bold. And that makes it sort of a de facto header. But this is even cooler, Nikki Kinzer. Below that, you'll see I have a prep and research task. But where is the checkbox? It's not there, Nikki Kinzer. There's no checkbox there. How did I do that? You just add a colon. Add a colon.
How did you know this? How did you know to do this? This is how
absurd my life has been. This is how absurd my life has been. I have invested deeply into this ecosystem to try and figure out what is so great about it. In fact, once you get these things in your fingertips, it makes it much easier to embrace. I am as surprised as anybody. If I go back here and type my exclamation points, now I have a task that is a header and it's in bold. But
did you go on some kind of video on Todoist and they showed you how to do this?
Not on Todoist, but on YouTube and blogs and all kinds of things. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out where to go. So I've invested a lot into figuring this out. Also, all of the keyboard shortcuts are weird. And yes, I did go on Todoist to figure out what the keyboard shortcuts were like, because they're not, they're mostly non-standard. You don't hit N or Command N to put a new task. You use Q and A. Like, it's a very strange setup to make this all work the way you need to make it work. But once you get it in your fingers, it is remarkably powerful. This little, I'm looking at a little drag handle here. This little drag handle is what allows you to indent tasks and, further break down the work you have to do. So,
but I have a question. Why don't you just go to things and do it the way that they have it laid out, where it's a lot easier?
I'm so glad you asked that, Nikki. It's like you were reading the show notes. This calendar integration thing is nothing to shake a stick at. You know me. I love me some calendar integration. And what my daily planning looks like is I take my calendar and I go in and I say, okay, I'm going to drag tasks from Todoist and I'm going to put it into my calendar. And in fact, you can't really do that from the web because it doesn't interact that way. But you can do it from the Todoist app on the Mac or the PC. But this is genius. This is sheer mad genius. So you go over here and you click on Settings. And you go into Settings, and it takes you to this fancy window. And over on the left side of this fancy window, there's a thing called, Integrations. You go into Integrations. And look at this. I have a couple of integrations that are really important. In Spark, for example, I have set up, Spark is my email client. I've set up the keyboard shortcut where if I hit Command Option T, it automatically sends emails directly into Spark. That's very handy. But, look at this. Look at this beautiful thing. This is Google two-way calendar syncing between my scheduled Todoist tasks and my Google Calendar. And now
now all your tasks are in your calendar.
But they're in my calendar at the time I have said that I want to do them. And you have.
But what if you don't do them at that time?
You move them. But look at, when I put something with a time on it, Nikki, I am zealous about that. That means I have said this task has to be done at this time, and I'm blocking
So you've
that
gated
time
it. So you're not putting every single thing
Not at all.
that you need
And
to
in
do.
fact,
This is the stuff that's the most important.
let me show you. This is what my calendar looks like right now. The blue is stuff that I have gated. The red is stuff that Todoist has added. And so you can see here, I have a video project that's coming up this afternoon. I have a daily review. I have 2 tasks that are part of the same project that will both get done in this half hour here. And so all of these things are blocked on my calendar. People cannot schedule time with me because I've committed those tasks directly to calendar. This is the exact same process of gating that I used to do manually, dragging tasks from my to-do app into the calendar manually. Now I just manage it in one place. So it has saved me a step. When I assign a time to a task, it's on my calendar as an appointment, and that means that task is sacrosanct. That is something I'm not going to mess with. It is a priority one. I have to get the work done at that time. Everything else that isn't associated with the time, I'm going to sneak into the holes here. I'll find a time to get those done. But this stuff is really important to me, and I will get it done. And in some cases, there are a whole bunch of tasks associated with this What's That Smell podcast, the trailer and the intro and after. That's like 15 tasks that are sitting in Todoist right now. I only need one task in there in my calendar for an hour and a half. I'll get all that stuff done in that period. So this calendar integration is bananas. Like, it is the thing.
And this isn't something that Things does.
Not at all.
You can't do it with Things.
You can what I was doing with Things was dragging the task out of Things and putting it onto my calendar and my calendar app, and it was fine. It was fine. But the fact that I can associate this and do this and save myself a step is.
And you're not overwhelmed when you look at your calendar and you see all this stuff that you have to do?
I'm not, because of the color. I look at it and I see it, and I know what it really means for me. I already know what time it is because the notification's going to come up. I see it on my watch. This is the next thing I have to do. But the most important piece is that people cannot schedule with me, right? I have my Calendly open, and it's checking conflicts against these 2 calendars. And people cannot go in there and schedule time when I have promised myself that I'm going to do this work. And that is hugely, hugely important. So the fact that I can do it all in one step, in one app, and not have to and not have to think about protecting my time, which is I am a zealot about protecting my time. You know that. I mean, it's huge, or I won't get the stuff done. So that is one of the things that I know.
Now I'm confused.
I know. And you also have to say, like, if at the end of the day, when I go back into Todoist and I see tasks that I just didn't get to, you run out of time, you don't get to them. It has this kind of AI scheduling tool. You just say, hey, this is a task I know I'm going to have to do, but it's looking at all of my tasks. Todoist is, and it says, hey, you have a busy Monday, you have a busy Tuesday, but it looks like you don't have that busy of a Wednesday. We recommend you schedule this task for Wednesday. It's thinking ahead for me, and I kind of like that. I don't do it with every task, this sort of auto reschedule, but you can, and I think that's a pretty interesting tool.
Wow. Okay.
So the calendar, the advanced power that is hidden underneath these labels and filters is amazing. You don't have to do any of it, but adding tags, labels, and projects, and then filtering them in those the 2 little side areas there next to projects is enormously powerful. I don't want to get into it today. I showed you how my projects are laid out in the major areas, but we can talk about filters another time if that's of interest to folks. I feel like we've been kind of going on here. The design sucks of Todoist. I don't like it. I find it hard.
Why though? I mean, to me, it looks the same as Things, really.
I can't put my finger on it. I wish I could, but I look at it and it makes my eyes cross. It really does. Like, I don't know if it's just the typography they've chosen. I don't know if it's that non-intuitive, this is fundamentally a web app, but it's wrapped in an application window. So it looks like it should be an app, and it should behave like a native app on my system. The keyboard shortcuts should work, and they don't. Those kinds of things break my brain a little bit and have required a significant amount of retraining. Once I got my head around those things, I've acclimated to it very well. So I think after all of this exploration, I'm probably sticking with Todoist. The things that stand out for me as positives are things that that overwhelmingly, they overwhelmingly beat out the things that I don't like about them. So,
I don't know. I have to, because I haven't bought anything on things yet. I'm still in the trial period. So I don't know. I'm kind of in limbo. I got to make a decision. Any suggestion on how, if other people are considering between these tools, how do you make a decision?
Do the trials. I really think, like, if it's important to you to actually understand all the nuts and bolts of these things, do the trials and invest. The only thing I can suggest, I know this, believe me, as somebody living with ADHD and anxiety, I can tell you, I know how hard it is to do this. And I think that the investment of 15 minutes a day for a week, actually putting your tasks in the system and checking them off and putting them in folders and putting them in projects and exploring the nuts and bolts. There are so many great YouTube channels of productivity experts who are doing detailed walkthroughs of functions and features and sharing how they set up their system, just like I did. Here's what my projects look like. Those are things that people do as a help, and it's wonderful. I may do a video like that myself and just walk through. Here's my Todoist setup after a couple of weeks and migrating. I think that maybe if that's helpful for people, maybe I'll do that. I think that is handy. I'm going to say this thing because it came in as a comment on Facebook. We'll get to the other comments after. But Chris just mentioned something that I have to say to everybody. Yes, Siri can add tasks to Todoist and OmniFocus and things. It's part of SiriKit. A lot of these developers have said, we want to make sure that Siri can talk to our apps. But Todoist is the most comical because you have to actually say, hey, lady. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to trigger anybody's things, but you say, hey, lady, add blah, 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 blah in Todoist. Todoist.
Because she doesn't understand.
Because she doesn't understand Todoist. And that seems like something a computer should be able to figure out. Like, it just should be. But I find sometimes I just can't do it because I still to this day end up laughing. Todoist.
It reminds me of when you see somebody and you don't remember their name.
Yeah.
Hey, you.
Hey, you. Yeah.
It's so good to see you.
Very. So anyhow, I think that investing the time to actually set up some projects that you're working, so the way I approach it is, what am I working on today? When I open up a new app for the first time, there are no tasks in it. What am I working on today? And if I have a sense of that, then I take 15 minutes in the morning and I type in all the tasks that I need to work on for the day.Maybe it's 10 tasks. Maybe it's, however many I can get through. And then I use that app for the things I'm working on today. And invariably at the end of the day, when I do my, 4:00 daily review, I'll have, more to add in for tomorrow, and I'll have more to check off from today. And eventually you find that you've sort of migrated, and now you have a system that's built into one of these apps. In my case, I spent a couple of hours every night actually manually copying and pasting and typing in tasks. So I had my entire life of tasks for the given month in each of these apps, and so I feel like I've gotten a real handle on all the way repeating tasks work and all these things. And I'm sticking with Todoist. Microsoft To Do, some folks have mentioned Wunderlist. I got an email about Wunderlist. It does all of the great things. I think it is a really terrific app. It was bought by Microsoft, and Microsoft doesn't seem to know what to do with it right now. It hasn't really been touched in a couple of years, I think, since the purchase. Many of the features are starting to roll into Microsoft To Do, and that is, I think, the rebranded replacement of Wunderlist. I don't know, there was a major server outage for the Sync server a couple of weeks ago. Like, it's falling apart. If you're a Wunderlist user, I totally get it. It's a great app. It syncs between people. You can have collaborative lists just like Todoist. Todoist. But it looks like it's fallen to pieces, and Microsoft hasn't really released their plan yet, so it's kind of an unknown. And then Apple Reminders, if you bought your iPhone, the Reminders app is the first place that you'll go. It's a Siri first-class citizen. You can add reminders. You can have multiple lists. You can share lists collaboratively if you have a grocery list with a partner or spouse. And all of those things work. Again, both of these apps, To Do and Reminders, they don't scale well if you want to have a serious, work planning system. They just don't scale very well. And so if you don't have a very complex, life with the work you need to manage, then they might be just perfect. They don't scale enough for me. So that's where we are. Questions from you, Nikki. What have you uncovered here?
That I thought I made a decision and now I'm second guessing it.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's just a matter. I think I just need to look at the two and, I'm at that point where everybody gets, you're comfortable with something and then you see something new and you're like, okay, but you just told me that I could do that with my old one.
Yeah.
And so, now I'm just rethinking, what do I need to do? And I'm kind of thinking of my workflow process too, right? You always kind of evaluate that. It's like, where am I most effective? And then what am I not? Because I have found that, there are pieces that go missing to certain projects. So how can I make sure that I'm capturing that, with these lists and all of that? So I just have to take some time to compare the two and figure out what I'm doing,
I would tell you as a thing to do when you go back to those three elements that we talked about at the very beginning, right? The three things that I was searching for. How easy is it for you to get things into the system? How easy is it for you to maintain the system? And how easy is it for you to use the system to move toward completion? Getting things into the system is a really important thing. Not only technically, how easy is it to actually physically press the buttons or copy things in and type, but how easy is it around your head to say, I know that this is a thing I have to accomplish, and the first place I'm going to look for that thing is not on a sticky note. It's not in a new Scratch Evernote note. It's in my work system, whether it's things or Todoist or whatever it is. It needs to go there. And so mastering those shortcuts there are shortcuts that you can activate that says for all of these apps, where if you select text in an email and hit a shortcut, different for all these apps, but hit a shortcut, it'll open up a pop-up window with the text in the task, and then you hit return and save it, and now it's in your system. It's there with a couple of quick keystrokes. Master those keystrokes, and you will find yourself in just such better shape. Nesting task, on the Mac, it's command square brackets. So move tasks in and out. But if you master that on Todoist, your projects will become perfect every time because you'll know how to do it very, very quickly without lifting your fingers from the keyboard. So master those keyboard shortcuts. Go up to the help menu and search for keyboard shortcuts for your particular app and learn them, because they will save your butt and they'll make it so much more fun to use. That's that. I think
and the only thing I have to say too about cost, I know a lot of people are concerned about that, and like you said, the things is expensive,
and you have to buy it everywhere. That's kind of a frustrating thing. With Todoist, it's a subscription. You get all the apps on every platform, but you're paying the monthly subscription or the yearly subscription.
Whatever it is, but this is what I think about that. I mean, I think that if you can find one, whether it's Things or Todoist or whatever, it's worth the cost, right? I totally think it's worth that investment, because if you can find something that really organizes your tasks, helps you with that workflow, keeps you organized, something you can easily tweak that's flexible, I mean, that's priceless information there. I mean, that to me is worth the investment. So find something that you resonate with and works. And I don't know. Don't think twice about it, in my opinion.
I agree with that. And as somebody who purchased Things and is not using it actively anymore, I don't regret it at all, because I got way more than the value of things in value than the cost over just the time I was using it. So I have zero regrets in that purchase. It's an amazing app, and it's incredibly well built. And if you're a Mac user, it's really great. So I have it on some authority from those in the business that Todoist stands for a little bit of a visual update this year, 2018. So I'm hopeful for that. But I'm also, so far, I'm pretty pleased with what I've seen. So we'll see how this goes. We have a couple of questions that we got that I wanted to address just before we leave. And well, I don't know. Do you want to do these in the after show?
Yeah, because that's what they're.
Okay, we'll do these in the after.
That's their little.
Okay.
Benefit.
All right. There's the benefit. All right. Well, I think we're done with this little task list showdown. If you have any questions after all of this nonsense,
the confusion, we go back and forth.
I am ready to start checking things off my list here. So I'm going to do that. But if you have any questions, please let us know. Find us on Facebook or Twitter, or send us an email, and we will. You can find that on the website, and we'll definitely give you a follow up in coming weeks. The next digital episode, in particular, and if you're interested in a little walkthrough of a more detailed walkthrough of my Todoist setup, I'm happy to do it. Just let me know. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you think that would be a useful thing to you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this very episode. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next time right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so questions.
Yes, first, I need to, before we answer, well, go ahead, but I got to sit down. My back is killing me.
I'm so sorry. Ugh, that's terrible.
I know, I have a hurt back.
Randy, I'm an Android user, and I've started using Toodly-doo. It works very well. My only complaints are that the iPhone app is complex and difficult to get the task list to display the way you want it. If I enter a task on my phone, that's number one. Number two, if I enter a task on my phone with a start date in the future, I can't find it to edit it. I have to use my laptop to edit it. That is troublesome, Randy. As soon as you make a task unavailable by setting the available date in the future, you can't see it. That would be the end of me. But I would wager, and I don't know the answer to this, but I'd wager there's an option. There's got to be something. I can't imagine. These guys have been around for a long time. I have to imagine there's some sort of secret sauce. It is troublesome to me if it requires you to search for a task and not just be able to navigate it. But I actually don't know that. But that feels like something I want to dig into, because that's really annoying. Chris, is there a to-do tool that integrates the calendar to the point of forcing the user to estimate time required for a task and scheduling it? I find that even when I'm adamantly using Todoist, I think of 100 things I'd like to do, but never really make the actual time required for each task. Therefore, I'm always a little disappointed at what's not done. Thanks. Also, if you were an iOS and web-based user only, what would be your favorite tool? Well, I think I feel like I sort of answered that. That's Todoist. I think that's a web-only citizen or first-class citizen, and I think that's probably the best one for web. I also think that maybe this calendar integration with Todoist is your answer.
That's what I was thinking.
There is one extra step you have to do, and I need to actually. I'm gonna check this right now. I don't know off the top of my head. Bear with me. So if I have a show here, 16th, 8 a.m., 1 hour? Can you set duration? No, not that way. What I don't know is if there's a way to set duration in Todoist. I haven't done that, and what I have found is that I have to go in, if there's a task that's going to take longer than the default that I've set up, which is a half hour for all the tasks that I set with times in Todoist, automatically sets a half hour window in my calendar. If I have something that I know is going to take longer than a half hour, I have to go in manually into my calendar and drag it out to protect that time. So it doesn't force you to do it. In OmniFocus, if you are just tapping through on your computer and you're entering tasks, so task name, project, context, the next thing you can make available is estimated time. And so there you can say, I want I want to show this, that this is going to take an hour and I need to start it on Tuesday. And so it'll give you, OmniFocus gives you a nice little filter that says, it says, hey, this is how much time you have estimated for the day. And it's miserable usually because you've overscheduled yourself. And oh my God, it makes my head swim. So yeah, that's that. I feel like that is, thank you for those questions. And Randy, you folks are awesome. I appreciate your podcast. I've been listening for a couple months now, diving back. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Nice.
Randy, that's very, very kind of you. I have a couple of other questions that came in over email. And this one was for you, Nikki. I love this. It's kind of old. It was back when you were adamantly using Todoist. From Matt, as a fellow Todoist user, I'm curious how Nikki sets up her projects. While I love the app, premium subscriber for 3 years, I've struggled finding a structure that I'm not tempted to tinker with after a few months, and it's getting exhausting. Classic ADHD behavior. Going online and seeing how everyone else does it, including a setup for GTD, of course, drives me crazy because I'm pulled in all kinds of directions. Like Evernote, Todoist is great, has enabled me to get a lot more organized in my adult life, but the sheer number of ways to customize it and Evernote, it's a nightmare for my ADHD brain. So feels, and he commented on our comment from a few months ago or weeks ago, that natural, I think this is funny. These systems have really helped me at work and at home, but sometimes it feels like they're optimized for people who, one, have natural organization skills that are looking for ways to set their own, to get even more organized, or two, they work for entrepreneurs who are self-employed and therefore set their own hours. And so that's certainly a challenge. How do you set up your projects? Things Todoist, I think we can be system agnostic here.
Yeah. And I let me look real quick. I'm sorry. I'm a little out of it because my back hurts so bad. So my energy is not quite as high as it used to be a day ago when my back didn't hurt. Okay, so this is also what I was talking about at the end of the show, where I'm kind of re-examining things, because in Todoist, what I would do is I would have categories of areas in my business. And so I have a category of the podcast. So if there was ever an idea that I had on a show, I would put that in there just so I wouldn't forget. It's not a task. It was just more of a place for me to put something so that I could remember it later. But then if there was a task that I needed to do, I also put it underneath the podcast, and I would put a date to it, or, something like that. Right. I would color code if it was important, like I would flag it if it was priority or not priority. Sure. You have a little project, your name, and my project manager has a project of her name. And so anytime that I need to remind myself to ask you a question, or if there's something I want to bring up at our next meeting, that's where I put that. And then sometimes I'll also put that things are pending there. So like if I'm waiting for something from you, then I'll put that it's pending, and it reminds me that I need to either follow up, or once it's done, I can take it off. But the pending was that, it was that indication to me that I've already done the first step. Now I'm just sort of waiting. Yeah. And then I also separated daily, weekly, and monthly tasks. So anything that needed to be done daily was a repetitive Monday through Friday. Same thing if something needed to be done every week. So it always came up, which was, really helpful, because whether you have ADHD or not, you don't want to rely on your memory. And so I have to put really simple things like, check the podcast Facebook page, because if I don't put that in as a daily thing, I will forget to check it. Yeah. Right. So right. I have those things, and that's all separated. And one of the things that I liked about things is that I didn't know you couldn't do that. I didn't know you could do this in Todoist, but in Todoist, I just had daily projects with all of the different daily things to do, but they weren't categorized. And so with things, what I liked is I have a daily, I have the daily project, but then I have everything categorized underneath, like what is for group coaching, what's for social media, what do I need to do for my clients? Yeah. So now I can kind of look at that and see what I'm doing for who and for why, like why.
And
But
now here I've told you, you can do not only all of that, you can do even more of it in Todoist.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that is really helpful, and this is how I use this with things because it was kind of a trial, like how I was going to do my workflow.
Sure.
So I did the webinar last week on Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of steps that you have to do to get a webinar up and running. And so I used it where I put under my area, I have work projects, and then under it was the time webinar. And then everything that I had to do with that time webinar was broken up and put under there. So that was more of a very traditional, here's my project, here are the tasks that need to be done. And as I did them, I checked them off, and so they weren't so much like the daily, weekly, monthly things that I'm doing all the time.
Yeah,
that was a definite project management type of system that I was going through. So it's very simple. There isn't anything fancy. I don't use templates. I haven't linked to my calendar. That's the only thing I'm trying to figure out, honestly, is that important? Because I don't do that now. I don't put, like, I didn't do what you did where you had like the transferring of the tasks to the calendar. Sure. I don't do that now. But is there a benefit to that? That's what I have to kind of like wrap my head around.
Yeah, for me, as I live on my calendar, there's absolutely a benefit. Time is everything, and I always run out of it, and that's really frustrating. So
yeah.
So I kind of have to wrap my head around it that way, and that has been really working for me, and a real secret that to any success that I've had in staying on top of things. I actually have a weird second question that comes from Erica to me. Things 3, I've heard Pete mention it. But I've tried it. I am using it, but I haven't had traction with it. How has Pete implemented it? I feel like this is
back and forth.
I feel like this is one of those things that the way I approached this project was to enter in my tasks in my system the same way that I use it in each app, right? So the same way that I used it in Things, I'm using it in Todoist. I want to see how the app, the design of the app, and the intention of the developers impacts the way my workflow works. Right. And one of the things I noticed is, with the exception of this calendar thing and the shared, being able to collaborate on lists, that in fact it's very similar. I've found that the transition has been eerily similar. I do, the things like the natural language that helps me in the day-to-day workflow. But in terms of accomplishing tasks, it's been very similar. One thing I have not explored is things like if this then that or Zapier integration. You can use Zapier, this third-party web service that'll integrate, because Todoist is a web app. You can integrate Zapier and say things like, "Hey, Zapier, I want you to search Twitter for all these hashtag mentions. Every time a mention comes in of my name or this hashtag, I want you to add a new task in this project that is, review this hashtag." So, for example, say we run a contest on Twitter, and you have to, message this particular hashtag my new contest. I can set it so that Todoist automatically has the links to every tweet that comes in, and I don't have to sit there and manage Twitter all the time. It automatically comes into Todoist because it's web-based. There are some pieces of that I think are really cool. For example, I have hue lights all over my house. I think I can set it so that when I check off a particular task, it will trigger Zapier, and Zapier will trigger my hue lights, and I will be able to set my entire house to flash green. I think that would be really cool. So there are those kinds of things that are just sort of fun, but I think that it belies some power in the system that I haven't gotten to yet. But in general, to get back to the specific question, I have a set for personal and any personal projects, trips, reunions. They go into my personal area. Photography for shots I want to take, shoots I want to plan, trips I want to take. Rash Pixel FM, and I have within there a project for every podcast that I'm either part of hosting or producing. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shows in there. I have Rash Pixel which has client projects in there, so there's one for every client I work with as a freelancer, and so I have different projects for everybody. And then my gift list has a project for every person that I think about buying a gift for throughout the year, birthdays and Christmas and those sorts of things. And so I like to keep that up to date. When I see something fun, I automatically put it in the Todoist list for those people. And so I try to keep it pretty simple at the top level because I really want to focus. I use those areas, those high level projects to drive my attention. And the things, it's based off my yearly plan, right? This year, I'm growing the network. I'm growing the shows. We're trying to do more with the ADHD podcast. So I put Rash Pixel FM up at the top. Those are things that I want to do more of. I want to grow our investment in time and energy. And so that placement is really intentional. And so I use that, as a metaphor for my year, for my time.
I do that too. I do put the most important key things up on top because I think there is something about that, that order that immediately that's drawing your attention and right.
The last question we gotten was from Landon Pauly, who is talking about our email is not precious, and this is not related to to-do systems, but I wanted to shout out to Landon for writing in. I really appreciate it. And she writes that Pete made a comment about checking your mail at certain periods of the day. What would it change in my life if email only came in at blank time? This immediately made me think of a few things regarding personality. Some people work better in the mornings, other are night owls, and some avoid email for certain periods because of this. It isn't unheard of for me to write important emails at 2 or 3 in the morning because that's the time I set aside for that task. I would like to recommend a service like Boomerang for Gmail. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned Boomerang. It is a great service, and I'm glad you brought it back. It accompanies your email service. You can set it up like it's a Gmail plugin, so it works inside if you use the Gmail web interface that lets you actually schedule send at a specific time. So you can write an email at 4 in the morning and not have it send until sometime reasonable like 9. The app I use on my Mac and iOS is Spark Mail by Readle, and that actually has that system built in. I have a device that's talking to me right now that I don't.
Yeah, I hear that.
About. Quit yelling at me.
Siri. Hey, lady.
No, it's this broken. I have this broken speaker, and it won't turn off. Like the off button won't turn off. So occasionally she just speaks up. I need it to run out of battery is what I really need. Anyway, I think it's great, and I think having that feature built into email is great. Boomerang comes with all sorts of extra features. So thank you, Landon, for that question. We appreciate that. I think that's it. Do you have anything else?
No.
I have some tasks.
I know.
All right.
And I need your IT expertise because, as we said, change and updates.
Let's do that now. Let's get on it. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
All Patreon folks, thank you so much for participating, for joining us,
you.
for watching. We sure appreciate it. I hope this was helpful. I know it's epic and long, and if you made it this far, bless you. You're fantastic.
Yeah, no kidding.
You are the few of the strong. Go eat some pizza. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Bye-bye.